share my screen to go over some slides with you all. Okay, is everybody able to see my screen? The PowerPoint presentation? Awesome, perfect.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if anybody's aware, but it's been a few years since we've actually had an in-person career fair. Specifically 2019, I believe, is the last time we've done this in person. So we figured to kind of get everybody prepared and ready for an actual in-person career fair, we'd have a prep workshop where we go over some logistics and best practices for getting ready for a career fair. And then we invited a panel of recruiters who are going to be attending the career fair next week, and open it up for all of you students to ask them questions, so you can get some tips on really how to stand out and really make the most of your time with them during the career fair. So just as a little bit of an introduction, my name is Justin Dolce. I am the manager of grad business career programs for the Albers Placement Center. For those that don't know, the Albers Placement Center is the career center for the business school. And we're doing this workshop in partnership with the Career Engagement Office, which is the career center for pretty much the rest of the campus. So if you're an engineering student, liberal arts, Career Engagement Office is your career center. And Carol, who is going to partner with me today on this career fair, would you like to introduce yourself, Carol?
Hello, everyone. Carol Luwali, she, her pronouns, and I'm the Director of Career Engagement, and I'm really excited to be here and see you here and hopefully at the career fair.
Cool, thanks, Carol. So just a quick agenda today. Going to talk really quickly about Handshake. Assuming most of you probably know what Handshake is, but if not, I'm going to just go over Handshake really quick, how to register for the career fair, and we'll do a bit of an overview and then some basic tips for preparing before we turn this over to the recruiter panel. So if you're, sorry, one sec, there's a lot in the way of this. Okay. So Handshake is basically our university job and events board. So it's specific to universities. So almost any employer that's interested in hiring a college student, whether it's for a full-time job or an internship or a recent alumni, is going to be on Handshake. They look for students, source students on Handshake, and they post jobs and events to Handshake. So as far as your job search goes, Handshake's kind of your one-stop shop. And the reason I'm talking about this now is you can register for the career fair on Handshake, and you can also get more information about the employers that are going to be attending on Handshake. So how to register for the career fair. We'll drop a link in the chat to so you can go and directly register now if you already haven't. But once you log into your Handshake profile, if you just click on the events tab, hit career fair, and then select what will be the 2022 business and engineering career fair, that is the 3 steps you'll take to actually register for the career fair. After you click on the career fair link, just hit join event up there in the upper right, and you'll have registered for it. This is helpful because, one, you're doing us a favor because then we kind of have an idea on how many students to expect at the career fair. But after joining, you'll also get additional notifications and updates about the career fair. The other thing I really want to point out is you can research employers and who's going to be attending the career fair on Handshake as well. So if you notice after you've gone to the career fair page, if you click all employers, you'll be able to see every employer that's registered for the career fair. If you then click view details under the employer, so in this example, we have Alaska Airlines, who just also happens to be one of the recruiters on the panel today. If you click that view details button, you'll be able to see more around, you know, things like what kind of jobs they're looking for, majors they might be specifically looking for, generally just more information about the employer and what they're at the career fair for. So it's pretty good to do a little research ahead of time. So quick overview. The career fair is going to be next week, Thursday, October 13th from 10:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. You can come, you don't have to be there the entire time. You can come to as much of the career fair or as little of the career fair as you like, depending on your class schedules. It's going to be in Campion Ballroom. So if you have no idea where Campion is, haven't been on campus in a couple years for whatever reason, here's a map on where Campion is. So it's across James Street, kind of by the track in the Chardin building. So have it circled here, and we'll also drop a link to this map in the chat as well. Just wanted to make sure everybody knew where Campion was if, like I said, you haven't been here in a while. And then Carol, I think you're taking the next 2 slides.
Yes. So basically, what do you expect? So here, the goal of this event is for you to be able to connect with employers who will be offering these internship opportunities or maybe job opportunities. And during these interactions, basically, you want to show interest. And as Justin has said previously, you'll know ahead of which employers are going to be there. So one of the best things you could do is be speaking in terms showing that you already are aware of who they are and maybe even what kind of opportunities there would be, so that you'll make the most of your time one-on-one together. So for example, your first question should not likely be, so tell me, what do you do? Or what do you hire engineers? For example, it should be some piece of news that maybe is current about the organization or something very specific about a role that you saw, because it shows you're prepared for the fair. So be prepared to come and engage with the representatives attending the organizations. And basically, if you're interested in any of the in business and engineering careers, this is the fair to attend. So you could be a business major, but interested in organization that's in engineering field and vice versa. You feel free to explore. Career fairs are also an opportunity to explore all the kinds of opportunities available to you by the different organizations that are represented there. Next slide.
Sorry, Kara, I realized the slide before this was yours. I stole it. My bad. Do you want me to take this slide, or do you want to?
Yeah, and it's basically the same thing. Just research the companies ahead of time. Bring a strong resume. If you're needing support, Alba's Placement Center is there. Our office is there as well as these resources that are available to you 24/7. There's a resume guide from the APC office. And also on the career engagement side, we have so many. We have a platform named Firsthand, which has tons of resume guides and that you can use to help your opportunities. So that is all I have here. Be ready. You'll be able to connect with lots of different people on that day. And again, elevator speech. So you can be practicing between now and then. We have 10 days to the career fair, and you can seek support from any of our offices. Thanks, Justin.
Cool. Thanks, Carol. Now, we definitely want to get to the fun part of this, which is the recruiter panel. So I'm going to, in a moment, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can actually see everybody's faces here. But our panelists today, we have recruiters from Liberty Mutual, Paravita Solutions, Alaska, and then we also have a student, Ben, who is sort of current student and also interned at Amazon recently to share insights as well. So I'm gonna, like I said, stop sharing my screen, and I think we'll have the panelists introduce themselves before kind of diving into some question and answers. So why don't we start with Brendan? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Justin. So my name is Brendan Stam. I am a senior campus recruiter here at Liberty Mutual. Looking forward to being on campus next week. We'll have some of our colleagues there at the career fair. We have a person who is currently managing our internship program. So if you're looking for an internship, it's a great opportunity for you to get more information about kind of how our programs are structured. And we'll also have a business rep on hand at the career fair. So if we do have a lot of Seattle University students that apply for our analyst development program. We actually have one of the leaders of that program that will be there on campus next week as well. So looking forward to meeting all of you, but I also recruit for our actuarial programs. So if any of you are interested in those fields, a great opportunity to learn more today.
Great, thanks, Brendan. Lauren, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Paravita? And you also used to work at Seattle U, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, thank you. Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Lauren. I work for Paravita Solutions. Also am an alum from Seattle University from 2018, and I most recently was working at Seattle University in our International Student Center, so I may see some familiar faces there. I will be on campus recruiting for some of our intern positions. We are a technical and strategic consulting firm based in Texas, but we have locations in Seattle and 9 other offices across the United States. So intern position that we have, and we also have a full-time entry-level technical consultant position that we're hiring for as well. So I will be there at the career fair. We also have some SU alums who are going to be coming with us that work in our Seattle office. So we're all going to be very excited to meet you all.
Thanks. Mackenzie.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mackenzie Hertogs. I am a senior talent acquisition outreach partner here at Alaska Airlines. That is a mouthful. It's just a fancy way of saying that I am part of our outreach team. I oversee our internship programs, and that'll be our big push when we're on campus for next week. We'll be actively recruiting for our summer 2023 internship opportunities. So really excited to share those opportunities that exist and meet with some of you all hopefully next week on campus.
Thanks, Mackenzie. Ben, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ben. I'm currently a senior here at Seattle University, and I had the opportunity to intern at Amazon last year as a recruiter, or this summer as a recruiter. So if you guys have any questions just on the student perspective of, applying the internship process, from start to finish, just, feel free to reach out to me. You can always reach out to me on LinkedIn as well, if you guys have any specific questions. But yeah, I can definitely help you guys with, kind of the student perspective on that, if you guys are interested.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. So I'm going to ask one, maybe 2 questions just to kind of get things warmed up here before turning it over to the students to ask you questions. And if the questions, it'd be great to get all of your kind of takes and opinions on this. So whoever wants to answer first, please feel free to do so. So my first question is, and again, kind of thinking about how we're actually back to an in-person career fair. So how would you recommend students prepare themselves when meeting with employers at an in-person career fair? How can they really kind of maximize the short amount of time they'll have at you when they come to visit you at your career fair booth?
Oh,
go ahead,
Jinx,
Mackenzie.
Brendan, do you want to go?
You can go ahead.
Rock, paper, scissors. No, I think Carol actually hit on a few of the important things in her intro that I just really want to expand on a little bit. But really coming prepared and doing your research ahead of time of the companies that you really want to make sure are on your list to connect with during the career fair. I know these career fair days go by really, really fast on both sides, both for the employer and the student. So coming ahead of time and knowing who's on your must talk to list, and then also coming with some really solid questions and research about that particular company. For me, one of the hardest things I think I see from students at a career fair is a student who will come up to my table and say, so Mackenzie, what do you have for me? And it's really hard because Alaska has a lot of opportunities, and without knowing what the student's interested in or coming with some questions that can kind of help gear that conversation, sometimes we have to do a little more pulling. So really coming in prepared with some questions that align to your interest, and also being able to share a little bit about you, what you're looking for, what you're majoring in, when you graduate. Some of those things are really important as well, just to kind of have at hand to make sure that we're maximizing our time and kind of shaping out that conversation from the get-go.
And to piggyback exactly what you said, Mackenzie, and to Carol, to your point about kind of doing the prep work that you can research ahead of time on Handshake. A lot of the employers that are going to be at the career fair will indicate what jobs they're hiring for on their Handshake profile. So if you have that opportunity to do a lot of like the prep work, the research of some of the companies that you have on your short list that you really want to talk to, know what openings they are promoting. And if there's something that aligns with your interests, or if there's an opportunity, whether it's a full-time role or an internship role that you have an interest in, being able to come to the table with specific questions about those programs helps to facilitate that conversation with the recruiter and make it hopefully a more advantageous conversation for you, and to come away with actual, next steps for a specific opportunity that you have an interest in.
Yeah, and to kind of add on to what's been shared already, I totally agree with all of that. And in addition, I think when you're doing that research, some things you can specifically look for are things that really resonate with you about that company, something that feels like, oh, I have this connection to a particular value they list on their website. Or maybe you see something on there that really has some shared experience for you. Bring that with you to the conversation, because you're really going to make kind of a more personal connection with the recruiter if they say, oh, they really did research on this thing particularly. And I can see them kind of being in line with the type of candidate that I'm looking for my company. And so having something very specific that connects you to that company is going to be very helpful.
Yeah, and piggybacking up what Lauren just said, lots of companies are going to have their mission statement on their website, and that's definitely a big thing that lots of companies are looking for. If, their interns and their employers, are living through their mission statement or passionate about the mission. So definitely make sure you're researching every company's mission statement that you want to, hopefully get an internship at, and, just, come prepared, ready to, talk about the business and show that you're passionate about what the company's doing.
Great, thank you all. Okay, students, your turn. I'd love to just turn this over for you to you ask questions of our panel here. Have some questions in reserve I can ask, but I'd much rather have all of you ask kind of the questions that are on your mind. So again, if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask it, or you can drop it in the chat and we will ask it for you on your behalf.
I have a question. When like recruiter or something reaches out to you on Handshake, is that like real? Yeah.
Yes.
I can add yes.
So should we like respond?
Yeah, you can definitely respond. A lot of times we will look through Handshake and kind of mass message a lot of candidates that have kind of shared interests, or maybe their major aligns with the types of majors we're looking for. So they may not be targeting you specifically, but it is a real message from a person. And so you can respond, or just kind of if they're driving you to their application, they're just encouraging you to apply.
Okay, thank you. I see them in my inbox and I never knew if they were like robots or something.
All right, I'd like to ask a question. In terms of sharing our profile, like I have my profile on the Handshake, do we assume that recruiters participating in this fair would have the profile with them as well, or should we share in advance whosoever we want to approach to now before the fair?
If you're asking like, will they remember you at the career fair by looking at your profile? Is that your question, Nitin?
No, Lauren, I mean, let's say there are 50 recruiters, including yourself. Should we share our profile with you guys in advance, or would you already have the profile with you through Handshake? I don't know. I just want to know that should we share now, or how do we share if we meet someone who's potential there, or it is afterwards? Just I don't know. I just want to know the process.
I can tell you from my perspective, what I find the most helpful is if you have that good conversation with a recruiter at the career fair, follow up afterwards with a message to that recruiter on Handshake. So that way you can kind of tie in something that you talked about or a takeaway that you had from that conversation, because we will meet hundreds of students during those hours at the career fair. So being able to tie back that conversation to you individually, for me personally, that's super helpful.
So afterwards, you mean after the career fair?
Yep.
All right, great, thank you.
And I was going to say, speaking from Alaska's perspective, at the career fair, we actually have a QR code that you can scan that says we've met today. It essentially puts you into what we call a talent community. So then when we go back after the end of the career fair, we can send you information that kind of aligns with your interests or the roles that you mentioned that you were interested in. And it actually connects you up to our ATS. So it almost builds out the profile for you ahead of time if you did actually want to go in and apply to anything. So that's something for us that I know has worked really well when we do go to an event, because that way we are capturing the interest from the people that we're talking to, and then can kind of proactively follow up on our end as well afterwards, just to make sure that we're not missing you and kind of keeping that next step moving after the fair.
Sounds great, thanks.
Yeah, and to add, ours is kind of similar. We have an iPad. We would have a candidate kind of fill out basic details about them so we can follow up with them to drive them to apply after the fact. And you can always connect with recruiters on LinkedIn later if you want to share a message in that kind of request to add them there, and then they might kind of remember you that way.
Great.
I just wanted to add something to the question about the handshake. Now, pre-career fair, it's always good to update your handshake profile and make it public so that it's visible. And if there are those matches that Lauren spoke about, you are likely to get a message saying that encourages you to apply for those that will direct you to apply for some of the positions that they're available. So pre-fair, the most up-to-date handshake profiles also sorts of sets you up for success.
Thanks, Carol. So I see a question in the chat I want to ask, because this was one of my prepared questions I was going to draw on too. What do employers, what do you think about dress code for students attending the career fair? Do you have dress codes at your companies? Is that even a thing anymore? How do you recommend students come to the career fair dressed? Business professional, business casual? Does it matter? Does it depend? Kind of what's your take on that?
I'll speak for Liberty. We have what we call dress for your day. So kind of just making that cognizant effort that based on what you might have that day, kind of dressing appropriately for the audience or the role that you're working in. So as you can see, like I'm wearing a hooded sweatshirt today. I'm here in Massachusetts, so it's like 50 degrees, so I'm dressed warm for where I am. But we also know that like students are coming in from classes, some might be coming out of like a practice. So for our purposes, we don't really care what the dress code or what students wearing when they come to the fair, as long as they're coming prepared with good questions. That for us is more important than what they're wearing that day.
Yeah, I would echo that for us as well. Not documenting anything about what a candidate is wearing. Of course, looking and feeling kind of comfortable in whatever that means for you. And so being, if you don't feel comfortable in a suit jacket, don't wear that. But obviously, as long as you're not wearing like a t-shirt with a bunch of holes in it, I think you're going to be okay.
Agreed. Our office dress code is always kind of business casual, but I think it has trended more to casual in recent years. So when I go to the office, I'm typically in jeans, to be honest. And so I don't think we are super particular in what we're looking for, because we understand we're meeting you where you're at, and that could be coming from classes or other things going on. But kind of to what Lauren and Brendan both said, just really showing up prepared, I think is something that's going to hold a lot more weight versus us actually looking at your physical appearance in something like a career fair versus an interview. Depending on the team, they might have certain dress codes that they really like to see, but I think for a career fair, we're really looking just for other qualities, not what you're wearing.
Justin, there's another chat message. Do you want me to read it?
Sure, thank you.
So this person's asking from an international student perspective, are most recruiters okay hiring under OPT or open to CPT, or maybe how can students find that out? And then do students need to be upfront with you all about this when they come up and talk to you at the table, or is it not necessary to share work authorization information right away?
I can start with this one. Having that personal experience, I think in the past, I may have said it's not really important to share that right up front, but now I work for a company that we are not allowed to hire students that are on OPT. So it actually is, I've found very helpful if you let us know that that is going to be your work authorization status, because we wouldn't want to waste your time if we're not able to hire you, so that you can spend your time talking to other employers. So I would say that it is helpful to share. We usually do also capture that information when we have you fill out kind of the quick questionnaire on our iPad asking if you require sponsorship. And so by kind of indicated on there, we'll know as well on the back end if you choose not to share that verbally.
Yeah, same goes for us. We also are not, unfortunately, able to consider students who are on OPT for internships. Sometimes for full-time roles, depending on the role, we have a little bit more flexibility. So I think kind of to Lauren's point, we also capture that in our general interest form, because if it is something where it's not necessarily an internship, but you're interested in a full-time role where we might have a little bit more flexibility, we want to make sure that we have that information as well.
And echo the same thing here for Liberty. Some roles that we have both for intern and full-time do provide sponsorship, others don't. So if we know that a candidate that we're talking to is on OPT or CPT and would need sponsorship at some point in the future, it helps us to kind of have that more specific conversation based on their needs and their specific situation.
And I will say for international students, there is a way to filter when you register. You can filter to see which employers are open to hiring CPT and OPT. That way you know which employers to reach out to.
I have a couple of questions. Sorry if they've already been answered earlier. So would you recommend carrying a resumes for recruiters? And the second one is the career fair taking up the graduate students as well? Or is it open to them as well?
I would definitely recommend bringing resumes along with you, even though we will capture data electronically. Some companies may not be doing it that way. And in case our system goes down for some reason, it's always helpful to just have resumes as a backup, or we can just quickly jot down what we talked to you about.
And yes, the career fair is open to both grad and undergrad students.
If you can't bring your paper copy of your resume to the fair, I wouldn't stress too much about that, at least for, again, speaking on behalf of Liberty and kind of how our process works. So I know Mackenzie mentioned like there's a QR code that some companies will have that will let you scan in to their table at the career fair. We also have something similar where you can scan in, you can create your profile, and then you can upload your resume directly through that website. So if you don't have a paper copy of your resume, many organizations will have that ability for you to upload that resume electronically afterwards.
All right, I actually had a question I wanted to ask. This question came from Lori and the Hours Placement Center. I just thought it was a really good question. Okay, so what are things you think students should be thinking about or asking you, the employer, but aren't asking you?
I can start. I think Ben kind of mentioned this in one of the earlier questions, but he mentioned mission statement and values. I think to me, students should be asking every potential employer what their values are and how that's ingrained into their culture. I think that is something that is super important, along with some of those tangible things like compensation and benefits, but really knowing the workplace culture and getting a feel for the values and how that goes back to that. I think is something that I always get really excited when I see people bringing up specific questions about our specific values, or even thinking to ask about our values and how we actually see those being lived out, because I do think it is something that is really important, but not something that everyone always thinks about. And I think it is a good indicator if you can hear an employee kind of on the spot have to talk to you about how those values are coming into play, how it really relates back to the culture versus just like, yeah, the culture is great. I think it does give you a real good tangible way to see a little more insight into what it could potentially be like working there. So anything that can really dive into the culture, but I think values specifically are going to get you a lot of information about really what the workplace culture is like. So like I said, anytime I see values questions, I always get really excited to see that somebody's not only thinking about that, but then kind of gives me the opportunity to really share about how those, how important those are for us here at Alaska.
Hi everyone. I had a question about the demographics and the locations of. I'm an international student here at SU, and am I audible?
It's a little bit hard to hear you.
Okay.
If you want to, you can ask your question, or you could also enter it into the chat.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the, I mean, the locations which will be offered. Like, will that be Seattle or other locations around the states? And also about the, I mean, the kind of opportunities which, I mean, we can't apply for all of them, right? So basically, the opportunities. If I ask about the civil engineering background, like in my case, will there be, I mean, different profiles available with them, or like you said, we have to be, because it might be the case that those jobs might not be posted yet. Thank you.
I think I heard that you're wondering about where the opportunities will be located. Are they only just Seattle based? And if there are other locations, I think that's what I heard. And what about jobs that are not yet posted? Will you still be, would the organizations be still willing to connect with students in those fields, even though the jobs have not yet been posted?
Yeah, I mean, is it for internships or job opportunities? Like, since I'm a graduate freshman here.
Yeah, and the opportunities, are they in graduate and are they internships or full-time jobs? The answer is they're both.
Yeah.
The answer is that they're both. And I know multiple organizations will be hiring for many locations, but primarily Seattle.
And like, is that all these opportunities, like if internships are there, they will be for the summer, and do they start hiring now, or what's the scenario?
Yeah, are the internships just for summer internships, or is it year round, or specific quarters or semesters?
I think for Liberty, all of our internships are 10 to 12 weeks over the summer, and they are across the country. So Liberty is headquartered in Boston, but we have our second largest office in Seattle. So we do have a lot of our roles that have the ability to really select what location across the country someone would want to work out of, whether it is Seattle or somewhere else. But we are actively recruiting now for those summer internships. So people are applying, we are screening candidates, we're interviewing now at this point. For Liberty, our goal is to try and fill as many of those open roles as we can before the end of the winter term, before we head into the new year.
And at Pariveda, our internship position is just for Seattle over the summer 2023, ideally for people who will have 1 year left before they complete their program. And then for our full-time positions, we are all over the country. So we do have a Seattle location, but we are also hiring for locations across the West Coast, in Texas, and East Coast as well.
And same for Alaska. Our internships are currently only offered during the summer for 12 weeks. We will be actively recruiting for those by mid-October. So we kind of follow a similar process to Brendan at Liberty. We do kind of a big push in the fall and the winter to get people kind of lined up before summer. And then I would say probably 95% of our positions are based here in Seattle. This is where our corporate headquarters is. So a lot of our roles just do funnel through here. And then depending on the role in the team, we do have some remote teams as well, like especially in our technology group. We see a lot of remote that kind of spreads out teams a little bit across the country.
Cool, thanks. So I have a question from the chat that I'm going to ask, but before I do that, I just wanted to circle back really quick because I wanted to get Ben's take as a former intern on something. So the earlier question I asked Ben, kind of, what do you think students should be asking but aren't? So from your experience as a current student, but also somebody who's done an internship, what kind of advice do you have there?
Yeah, well, I know Mackenzie's advice, which is like talking about the values and mission statement. That's definitely a really big thing. When I was asking at Amazon in the internship interview, like, oh, how's the culture like? That's a really big thing that like you kind of tell the interviewers like perked up. They're excited to tell you about the culture and everything. So I think a good thing is remembering, like I know like you guys are, it's really exciting to apply to an internship, and I know like your mindset can definitely be like, oh, I just want whatever internship I can get, right? I know that was definitely my mindset when I was applying, but you really also want to like ask all these questions and figure out like if the missions, if the values of the culture, that's a good fit for you. And recruiters are really going to appreciate that. They're really going to appreciate you actually bringing these questions to the table, asking them, because it goes to show like if you have the attitude where you just like want any internship that you can just for the experience, recruiters are going to be able to see through that. So just as everyone's saying, just to reiterate, just make sure you come prepared, make sure that you're asking these good questions, and just make sure that, if you're trying to play into, pay attention to the culture and the values of these companies that you're talking to the recruiters at, because they're really going to appreciate that.
It's good advice. Definitely you want to interview the interviewers as much as you're being interviewed yourself, which this actually segues perfectly into the question from the chat I wanted to ask is, so recruiters, can you talk about your company's interview process? So how do you select candidates? And then when you reach out for interviews, what's that interview process look like? Basically, what should candidates expect if they get selected to interview with your company?
It is a little bit different based on the position that you're applying to. So for example, we have our Tech Start program, which is more of like the software engineering side of Liberty that has options in Seattle. If you're applying for that role, there is a technical portion that you would have to complete as part of that interview. Other roles don't have that technical component. It's just the traditional behavioral style interview. And then depending on the position, there may also be a case interview as well, but those case interviews are typically held in the second and for most positions, what is the final round of interviews. So most of our interviews, when we review resumes, we'll schedule an initial phone screen with the student. And that phone screen is a 30-minute phone interview going over behavioral style questions. The candidates that we then move forward to the next round of interviews, that second round of interviews is, again, the final round for most of our programs. And most of those are either going to be like a panel of interview or a panel interview format, or what we have for some positions is just multiple like one-on-one interviews after each other to give you kind of an opportunity to connect with different folks in the organization and get some different questions posed to you from those different interviewers.
I can go next. At Pariveda, we would start by inviting you to a recruiter screen over Zoom. So that would be 45 minutes meeting with a recruiter. They would try to learn more about you and your interest and experience, and kind of share more about our positions that we would offer. If you were invited next to the behavioral interview, that would be 45 minutes meeting with someone in our leadership team, also via Zoom, but kind of more of those behavioral like scenarios type questions, like tell me about a time when you faced a challenge working in a group and how did you work through that challenge. And then that would be the end of the process for our internship candidates. For our full-time positions, we would invite you then to a 3.5-hour case interview via Zoom. I would say not to worry about that too much yet. If you would get to that stage, you would learn a lot more information about what that looks like.
Yeah, and our process for internships at Alaska is fairly similar. First round would be a 30-minute phone interview with a member of the talent acquisition team. We do some behavioral-based questions, but really want to get to know you and share a little bit about the role that you're interviewing for. And then we do try to keep the whole process to 2 to 3 rounds of interviews. Sometimes when you do see a third round, it would be for some of our more technical roles where they would have a technical component, like sometimes our software engineering internships. We'll have you do a coding exercise alongside the team. And so sometimes we see that round come in between the recruiter screen and the panel interview. But for most of the roles, it would be fairly similar behavioral-based interview with the recruiter and then a meeting with the team. And that can look just slightly different, just depending on the role and the division that we're hiring for. But we do try to keep it fairly condensed to those rounds.
Cool, thank you all. Ben, what was your experience like interviewing at Amazon?
Yeah, so I was just gonna unmute myself. So yeah, definitely. So how it works also from my experience is that depending on the job position, there'll be like an initial assessment that they give out to you. And depending so it's just like multiple choice questions, like asking how you respond to these situations and everything. And depending how long you score and how that matches to like their leadership principles, it depends if you get moved to the next round. So that's pretty much like, at least for Amazon, they have like that initial disqualifier that you want to make sure that you do well on. For one internship I applied for there, it was like a business analyst position. They had that assessment, but for my recruiting internship, they didn't have an assessment. So not every position will have an assessment. And then when I had the interview, the really big thing that Amazon likes to focus on is these leadership principles. So on the website, if you just look at Amazon leadership principles, like there's about 15 leadership principles that they just really want to show that, you know, like with your time in school or with past experiences, like how you exemplified or how you demonstrated those leadership principles. That's like a really big thing at Amazon, just make sure that, you know, you'll have all these leadership principles. And then with like when the recruiters, you know, when they meet to talk about like, so for me, you'll have like 2 interviews. So I had 2 interviews back to back with 2 different recruiters. And one of them, I'm not sure on the exact process, but there's something called a bar raiser at Amazon, and pretty much like they're the person who can approve whether or not like you go through. But it'll be a discussion between these recruiters, like, you know, how the interview was. And they want to just pretty much see, like, you'll ask you questions. Yeah, like I said before, they'll ask you questions like, oh, how'd you react to the situation? Or tell me a time like you use data in a scenario, or tell me a time you had to make like a really quick decision, you know, questions like that. And yeah, just make sure, you know, if you're interested in any Amazon internships, that you're just reviewing the leadership principles, and maybe spend the next month or so, you know, gathering experiences where you can further like show like, oh, I exemplified this leadership principle and I demonstrated this leadership principle. So yeah, that was my experience with it, but overall it was really easy, really quick, and I definitely recommend applying to any Amazon internship experiences if you guys want to or have the chance to.
Cool, thanks, Ben. I was looking through the chat. There's still a couple more questions about OPT, CPT. I would say, just for sake of time, and since OPT and CPT can kind of be dependent on each person's sort of like unique circumstance and where they're at and what jobs they're looking for, happy to talk more one-on-one. So if you have questions around that, especially as it relates to your job and career search, schedule an appointment with the Alvarez Placement Center or the Career Engagement Office. We're happy to kind of dive into that more with you. There's another question around some of the employers attending the career fair don't have their roles posted on Handshake. Is there any way to ask them in advance before the fair? Just quickly from my take, I would say if you go to the company's own career website and search the jobs and internships that they have there, that would probably be your best bet to see kind of what they're recruiting for and looking to fill. You could also probably reach out to a recruiter or a contact on LinkedIn, see if they can connect with you there and ask them. But I would say probably checking out the company's career website. Still have about 15 minutes left. What other questions do you have, students?
I have one question, and thank you so much everyone for sharing such important and useful information with us. My question might sound a little bit Also, let's say we had a good conversation with a recruiter during the career fair and we decided to apply for the specific position through LinkedIn. Sometimes, so there is an option for easy apply in LinkedIn instead of like just apply properly going to the career website of a specific company. So my question is, does the recruiters really see that application which we applied through Easy One? Because there we just answer a few specific questions, we upload our resumes and that's it, we just click on submit. So I'm not sure if all the recruiters are able to see that application or not, or it is not that good process to do that instead of just go and apply from a careers page where we just completely fill the whole application and submit. So do you think it's a good idea to use the easy apply option or just the career one, like the career page one?
Speaking from my experience, I know that LinkedIn does connect to our applications, but I do usually recommend that students apply directly via our career site, just for a couple of reasons. We have a little bit of a wonky applicant tracking system. And so sometimes we find that if candidates are applying through something like a LinkedIn or an Indeed, it's filtering over, but sometimes it does seem like it kind of gets, the formatting can get a little weird. It doesn't always sync up with our ATS very nicely. And then it seems like sometimes we're missing information. And so just speaking solely for Alaska, we do recommend that people apply directly through the career site. That way we make sure we are capturing all of your information and it is captured correctly and cleanly, just so we make sure that we're not missing anything important as we are looking over your application. It does connect, but sometimes we see some formatting issues on our end. So.
Thank you so much, Mackenzie.
Also, to kind of go off on that, aside from the LinkedIn application process for Liberty, we require all of our applicants to apply directly through our careers website. So we do find that a lot of students will apply for jobs through Handshake. And again, this is a Liberty specific issue, but that application doesn't feed into our applicant tracking system. So we do find that a lot of students apply through Handshake thinking that they've actually applied to the role, when in actuality, they need to then go on our website and apply. So I think it's to kind of go off what Mackenzie said, you can still apply that, through LinkedIn Easy Apply, but just make sure that your application has been received. If you have applied, you will get an automated email saying that we've received your application. So as long as you've gotten that notification that your application's been received, then I think you should be okay.
Great call out, Brendan. And one thing, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Tanya, but I was going to say one plug that I would put into is it's really a good idea to check your spam box for those confirmation emails too, because they do come auto-generated from the system. So sometimes we have people who are questioning whether or not their application got submitted or if they're getting correspondence from us, and then we find out that that message has gone to their spam box. So it is, once again, just kind of one of those weird connection things from ATSs and some of the generation that comes out once you've applied. So if you don't see it in your regular inbox, worth checking your spam or junk box after you've applied, just to have that peace of mind that your application did go through.
Yeah, just to add to that, when let's say when I apply, I usually get a submission, no reply notification from the company that I have applied to the specific position. But sometimes I see when I reach to a careers page and specifically see that applied job, I might not see the application there. So that's why I was thinking if the easy apply one is a good option to apply, even though I've received the notification that I've submitted the application, but I'm not able to see on their career page where I've applied. So yeah, thank you so much for that information. That was really helpful. Thank you.
So I had another question in the chat, and I'm just going to summarize this really quickly. So for students who might be new in their programs or new to SU in general, is there anything that they can do to put on their resume to make their resume stand out to recruiters? Basically, what are you looking for on a resume other than maybe just like direct apples to apples applicable work experience?
I can start. I would say if you haven't had any internship experience yet, getting involved on campus is a really great way to get started, whether it's a part-time student job or some kind of student leadership position. That's going to be something that will show skills that you're learning. You know, you're taking active progress to try to better yourself and make yourself kind of more prepared for the working world. And so just kind of anything you can do, whether it's on campus or off campus, to kind of get some kind of experience under your belt is going to be really helpful. You can also list kind of relevant coursework that can be helpful for us to know that for us, it's like technical skills. Do you have those coding experience that we're looking for? And so that's going to be really helpful. I also would recommend maybe just doing some informational interviews with people at companies you might be interested in, and they can kind of give you advice along that line as well.
Yeah, I can give a little bit of the student's perspective on this. So definitely, you know, lots of these jobs you're going to apply to via LinkedIn and Handshake is going to be like, oh, maybe it's going to say only looking for rising juniors, rising seniors, rising sophomores. So you kind of have that filter as well, like which ones are actually looking for people who are going to become sophomores or freshmen. So you do have that point. So you don't have to apply to all these internships, you know, not knowing what's going, you know, not knowing who they're going to accept, because, you know, they will usually say like what grade they're hiring in. And then as well, like, you know, yeah, you mentioned a good point. Like, yeah, when you do start at CLU, you don't have a lot of these skills fleshed out. But I think there's two ways. There's like hard skills and soft skills. So, you know, hard skills, you know, Excel, Microsoft Word, you know, things like that. But with your soft skills, like leadership, communication, like these are things, you know, you definitely are getting better at with your school, with classes, you know, things you can definitely, no matter what you're doing on campus, like definitely, you know, you're getting those skills. So, you know, as mentioned before, like in your education section, you know, mention the classes when you did in those classes. Maybe you had a leadership role in that class, or maybe you're in a club where you are, you know, doing a lot of stuff. You know, definitely feel free to mention all this stuff. You know, the more stuff you mention, the better. And yeah, so definitely know that your hard skills might be not most developed yet, and that'll come with time. But with your soft skills, you know, that's definitely something that you can nurture a lot while here at SU, and probably already have some skills as well. So I'd say don't doubt yourself, be confident, and, you know, just applying to the application is like one of the biggest things you can do. You don't know unless you apply, right? So yeah.
I'd agree. I'd echo with both what Lauren and Ben both said. You know, I think a lot of our hiring managers, when I ask them what they're looking for in an intern candidate, a lot of them, those soft skills really will outweigh a lot of the technical skills. Now, obviously, for something like a software engineering internship, we are looking for you to have some coding experience, but maybe you've never had an internship, or you've had one project through your coursework, or you've done a side project just because you had an interest in it. That's stuff that all counts and should be highlighted. And then I think anything that you can do that's really showing some of those soft skills that are really translatable, like working with people, collaboration, communication. A lot of our teams really like to see what you're involved in outside of just going to class every day. We know your academics are super important, and so I'm not trying to discredit that or anything, but I think for a lot of our teams, what you're doing outside of the classroom holds more weight than maybe, oh, you're going and taking a business analytics class. You know, really, what else are you doing, and how else are you growing those skills that are really going to just make you a well-rounded employee, both on the technical side and the soft skill side.
Awesome, thank you. So there's another question in the chat, and I think I'll just try to field this one just since we're running a little short on time. It was around eligibility for internships for grad students, if I'm understanding this right. Generally speaking, if you're in the first year of a grad program, you want to apply to an internship. And if you're in the second year or the final year of a grad program, you probably want to apply for a full-time position. Kind of depends on everybody's situation and how much time you have left in school after you've done an internship. Generally speaking, if you have like a quarter or a year left of school that you need to take after having completed the internship, then you're eligible for an internship, if that makes sense. Employers, if I've misspoke there, please correct me. Otherwise, I would say maybe I have time for one more question, and then I would just open it up to the panel for any parting advice. We'll take one more question from students or from the chat. Any more questions? All right. One thing, if there is, we will have a recording of this up on the Albers Placement Center YouTube playlist. So I had a question about that earlier, so you can rewatch this or watch any of the other amazing, wonderful, super interesting videos we have. And you can find all of those webinars on that link right there. So thank you, employers, very much for coming. Your advice was awesome. Any parting words of wisdom for our students getting ready to prepare for the career fair?
The one thing that I always recommend to prepare for career fairs as you go to the fair, as a recruiter, I hope that I'm not intimidating, but every recruiter is super friendly. Just know that. So if you are hesitant or nervous about coming up to a booth and having that conversation, I know when I was a college student, that was me. I was the person that just avoided those types of situations at all costs. And now look at what I'm doing now. I'm on the other side of the table. So just know that we are more than happy to have those conversations with you. There's no such thing as a silly question. Like we want to be able to have that conversation with you. So do not be afraid to step up and speak with any of the recruiters that you meet at the fair.
Agreed. And I would just also add, be yourself. You know, when we meet you at a career fair, we want you to feel comfortable. We want you to feel like you can be your true authentic self, because that is who we want to see you bring to work every day. So we don't want you to come up and, you know, say, hey, I've got 5 years of Excel experience, because you think that's what we want to hear. I'd rather have a student come up and say, I've never worked with Tableau, but I've had a really big interest in it. And I know you have an internship that would let me do that. So be yourself and really let your personal experience and personality shine through. And I think if you kind of follow that, you'll make a fantastic first impression on any of the companies that you speak with.
Yeah, I'll echo everything that's been shared so far. Also, just I know career fairs can be overwhelming. So if you need to take time, step away and come back kind of once you've collected yourself, that's totally fine. Doing your research is going to be a really great way to make yourself feel a little bit more prepared going into those conversations. And then just kind of know that you're really the one that's looking for a good fit for yourself. You're driving that relationship. And so being prepared in that sense is going to help you find something that feels like a good fit for you. So coming in with questions is really helpful. And then, yeah, just definitely be yourself.
Ben, parting words of wisdom.
Yeah, I was thinking, because I remember my first career fair, like I got so anxious, I actually left without talking to anybody. So definitely but that's the thing, I didn't know how like recruiters, you know, they want to find a candidate just so much as you want to find an internship, right? So just know that these recruiters aren't here to judge you. You know, they want to hear from you, they want to learn about you, they want to hear about your experience. So, you know, it is intimidating, don't get me wrong, but definitely just know that, you know, it's a two-way street. Just try to have fun with it, you know, try to make it a conversation and not like a business transaction. And, you know, just try to enjoy it, because it's going to be a great experience. And no matter what, you're going to connect with some people, and, you know, that's going to help you regardless, or you're going to get at least experience of talking to professionals. So no matter what, you know, just show up and, you know, make the best of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you again, employers, for coming today and sharing your best practices and tips for our students. And thank you, students, for tuning in. And hopefully we will see all of you on October 13th at the Business and Engineering Career Fair. So enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you then.